Let's tie Sheen Stalcups when your parachute. We begin with a TMCO 101, and this is 17-aught uni thread in white. Wrap down a base of thread, clear back into just above the where would be the barb of the hook. I've got some coq-de-lion fibers. These are in medium, and I just grab a bunch, odd or even, and then I just split them. What I'm trying to do is get a little bit of to help float the fly a little bit. And tie them in, and I've got that extra piece of thread, that tag in, and I'm going to split my fibers apart. So what I do is I lift it up a bit with my finger and then use my bodkin to split the fibers into an equal bunch. Pretty equal bunch. I'm not so concerned about how many. I don't think the fish count how many tails these things have, but I just want to get a nice splay going on so it helps float the fly. I just want to make sure I'm to the very back of that tie-in point with my threads. I'm going to trim that thread off, as well as some of the excess fibers as soon as I wrap down. These fibers are so thin, though, that they don't really give my body, the abdomen section, any bulk, and they don't make it unsmooth, so it's uneven. Now I've got a goose biot, and I'm going to paint it to the notch towards the back so I get a pretty smooth body. And tie it in. And bring my thread up into the thorax. Get my good hackle pliers. I'm actually going to use the rotating function on my vise. Now I overlap just a little bit. I get a little bit of fuzzy rib on the beginning, but after that it gets covered up by the preceding wraps, concentric wraps. And it just goes long enough to get into the thorax area. I'm not too concerned when it gets up to the thorax area because it's going to be covered up quite a bit by the dubbing from the thorax. But behind that section, it's nice and segmented, and it's got that gorgeous color, that two-tone color. And trim off some of the excess material. Tie down that goose biot. Now what I have is a hen saddle at the tips of the feathers. And I used to tie this fly, tried to tie this fly without pulling all the barbs. But you see, I've got the tip, then I leave a little extra stem and I cut off some of the fibers. And what that does is create a little paddle for me so that my feathers can't roll. I tie it on the back first. They still roll a little bit on me, but not as bad as before. Just gives me more surface contact area to the hook. And I basically figure eight it on top of the hook. That's one. Now I got to go on the other side. I'm matching up the tips once again, and then I'm going to figure eight once again. Now that I've got them both on, now I can put equal pressure on both sides. And that's what lets the feather stay up straight. And with that, it lets me give me a good base to put my, actually tie my hackle around it. There we go. Now I take quite a few barbs out the front end of this because what I want to do is wrap with the bare stem first before I get into the barbs. And see, I get quite a bit of stem there off that hackle. Now I'm going to get my guillotine and hang my hackle from it so that I can run some dubbing underneath there on the thorax as well as on the base. A little dubbing on my thread. And just figure eight it through that area. Need a touch more dubbing, especially for the head of the fly. And see, it actually holds up gives me a good base to wrap my hackle, and it gives it a good solid base on for the wings. And trim off some extra material and wrap my hackle. And see, I don't have to hold the hackle. I one wrap and then I go underneath it as much as I possibly can. Now I have a tendency to over hackle my flies, but I just do it at least 4 or 5 turns. Try not to catch as many fibers as possible. Now I'm just going to trim off my excess hackle and use a half hitch tool to throw in 3 or 4 half hitches. All that is a piece of brass tubing I got from a model store. What I'm using for my half hitch tool. you do sand off the edges a bit. I'm going to trim off my thread and trim off a bit underneath. And once again, this is Shane Stalcup's Wing Your Parachute.